My name is Sophie, and at 32, I never imagined a text from my father would shatter my world 3 days before Christmas. Don't come. Your sister's in-laws are elite. We can't have you embarrassing us. The expensive crystal ornament I'd saved for months to buy my parents slipped from my trembling hands, exploding into glittering fragments across my kitchen floor. What my family didn't know was that my boyfriend watching from the doorway was actually Daniel Harrington, the eldest son of those very same elites. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family. Trust me, what happens next will show you that sometimes being excluded from the table is the greatest gift you'll ever receive. Let's discover together how the people who claim to love us most can become our greatest betrayers, and how sweet justice can arrive when you least expect it. The shattered ornament seemed to mock me from the floor, each piece reflecting a different memory of sacrifice I'd made for my family. As a teacher at Lincoln Elementary, I'd never earned what most would consider impressive money, but I'd given everything I had to the people who now deemed me an embarrassment. 3 years ago, when Dad lost his job at the factory and couldn't afford his heart medication, who worked weekend tutoring sessions and summer school to cover his medical bills. When Mom spiraled into depression after her sister died, who spent every evening after teaching 30 energetic first graders to sit with her, making sure she ate, showered, and remembered her worth. When my younger sister Megan couldn't afford her final year at university, who took on a second job grading papers until 2 in the morning so she could graduate debt-free. My phone buzzed again, this time showing Mom's picture. Her voice dripped with false concern when I answered. "Sophie darling, I heard about your father's message. You know how stressed he gets about making good impressions. The Harringtons own half of Silicon Valley, sweetie. Maybe this is for the best. You could use the time to upgrade your situation a bit. Have you thought about maybe saying you're a private education consultant instead of just a teacher? It sounds more prestigious." The word "just" hit me like a physical blow. Just a teacher. As if shaping young minds and creating the next generation of thinkers was something to be ashamed of. Mom, I teach the children of senators, doctors, and yes, even tech millionaires. They trust me with their most precious possessions. Why should I lie about that? Silence stretched between us before she sighed dramatically. It's not lying, Sophie. It's presenting yourself in the best light. Megan says you sometimes talk about those education reform ideas at dinner. The Harringtons might find that a bit too political, too radical. We just want everyone to be comfortable. After ending the call, I noticed 17 missed messages from my cousin Emma. Her texts revealed the depth of this betrayal. "Sophie, I'm so sorry. I just found out this has been planned for weeks. Megan specifically told your parents you shouldn't come. She's been telling everyone you're struggling financially and mentally since your breakup last year." My breakup last year, I hadn't dated anyone before Daniel. What lies was my sister spreading? Emma's next message included screenshots from a family group chat I'd never been added to. There was Megan painting a picture of me as some sort of family failure. Sophie means well, but she's one of those people who peaked in college. Still single at 32, driving that ancient Honda, living in that tiny apartment. I saw her buying generic cereal at Target last week. It's just sad. The Harringtons would be mortified if they knew Richard's future sister-in-law shops with coupons. My hands trembled as I scrolled through more messages. Each one was a carefully placed dagger. Megan had told them I was too liberal, that I made people uncomfortable with my passionate discussions about equal education access. She'd claimed I dressed inappropriately, that my teacher wardrobe of cardigans and comfortable shoes would clash with the Harringtons' designer aesthetic. The cruelest lie she'd told them I was bitter about her engagement, that I'd probably cause a scene out of jealousy. Then came the direct assault. A text from Megan herself, sent with the confidence of someone who believed they'd already won. "Sophie, I know this is hard for you to understand, but this is a crucial moment for our family. The Harringtons can change our lives. Dad won't have to work construction anymore. Mom can finally get the therapy she needs from real specialists, not the community clinic. But they have standards. You're 32, unmarried. No assets spending your days finger painting with 6-year-olds. Maybe it's time to aim higher instead of playing teacher. I'm trying to build something here, and I can't have you destroying it with your thrift store clothes and talk about wealth inequality. This is for everyone's good, including yours. Use this time to reflect on where your life is going. I stared at her words, each one revealing how little my family understood or valued what I did. Those finger paintings included helping a selectively mute child find his voice through art. That playing teacher involved creating innovative programs that had been adopted by 3 school districts. My thrift store clothes were often mixed with quality pieces I'd saved for creating a professional wardrobe that my principal often complimented. But to them, I was just the family disappointment who'd chosen chalk dust over corporate ladder climbing. The apartment felt suffocating as I swept up the broken ornament, each clink of glass in the dustpan echoing my shattered expectations. That's when Daniel's key turned in the lock. He took one look at my face and immediately pulled me into his arms. "I know what happened," he said quietly. "I saw the texts." I pulled back confused. "How did you see my texts?" His expression turned serious. "Remember when you had that parent stalking incident last year? You gave me permission to monitor your phone for safety. I still get notifications when you receive messages from unknown numbers or with certain keywords. Sophie, there's something I need to tell you." Daniel guided me to the couch, his hands holding mine with unusual intensity. "My last name isn't Davidson, it's Harrington. I'm the eldest son of the family your sister is marrying into." The room spun. My boyfriend of 8 months, the dedicated doctor who worked at free clinics, who drove a 10-year-old Subaru and lived in a modest duplex, was heir to a pharmaceutical fortune. "Let me explain everything," he continued, seeing my shock. 5 years ago, I was supposed to take over Harrington Pharmaceuticals. I'd just finished my residency and my father had my whole life planned. Corner office million-dollar bonuses and continuing their practice of charging desperate patients thousands for medications that cost pennies to produce. When I discovered they'd increased insulin prices by 800%, causing deaths in low-income communities, I couldn't do it. I walked away from everything. His voice grew harder. My siblings turned on me instantly. My brother James called me mentally unstable, said I'd been brainwashed by liberal medical school professors. My sister Victoria was worse. She actually petitioned to have me declared incompetent, claiming I was having a breakdown. They wanted to control my trust fund, which I'd planned to use for opening free clinics. My parents cut me off completely, told everyone I was dead to them. The official family line is that I'm having an extended mental health crisis in Europe. Everything suddenly made sense. Daniel's reluctance to talk about his family, his deep understanding of how money corrupted relationships, his passion for serving underprivileged communities. He'd given up everything to maintain his integrity. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, hurt creeping into my voice. "Because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not who I was born as. You're the first person in years who's seen me as just Daniel, not as the Harrington heir who lost his mind. But now our worlds are colliding and you need to know what you're really dealing with." Together, we opened Megan's social media profiles. What we found was staggering. She'd created an entirely fictional family history. According to her carefully curated posts, our father was a retired CEO in construction management, rather than a plumber who sometimes did construction work. Our mother was described as a wellness consultant instead of a part-time receptionist at a chiropractor's office. But the lies about me were the most elaborate. In Megan's fictional narrative, I was the family's shame, a woman who'd chosen to waste her potential and was struggling with depression and financial instability. "Look at this." Daniel pointed to a photo Megan had posted. It was from an education conference I'd attended where I'd presented a paper on innovative teaching methods for special needs children. Megan's caption read, "So proud of my sister for attending these networking events. She's working hard to transition into educational consulting. The Harringtons have offered to connect her with some opportunities. She's using your actual achievements but twisting them to fit her narrative," Daniel observed. "Classic manipulation. She can't erase your successes, so she reframes them." We found more evidence of her deception. Photos from family gatherings where she'd cropped me out stories where my accomplishments were attributed to family connections and constant implications that I was a charity case they were supporting. Then my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "This is Victoria Harrington. I know you're with my brother. If you have any sense, you'll end this relationship now. We know all about you, Sophie. Elementary school teacher bleeding heart liberal probably thinks you've hit the jackpot with Daniel. Let me be clear, if you show up anywhere near our family's Christmas celebration, I'll make sure every private school in the state knows you're unstable and inappropriate around children. We have connections on every board. Your little career will be over before you can say, social justice. Stay away from Daniel. Stay away from us, or I'll destroy everything you've worked for." Daniel's face darkened as he read over my shoulder. She hasn't changed. Still using threats and intimidation to control everyone. He pulled out his phone and showed me a message from his brother James. "Heard you're slumming it with some teacher. Fitting, really. Both of you choosing poverty over potential. Keep your trash girlfriend away from family events or I'll make that little Guatemala clinic problem look like child's play." "What Guatemala clinic problem?" I asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Last year, I spent 3 months setting up a free clinic in rural Guatemala. It was serving hundreds of people who'd never had access to health care. Suddenly, health inspectors appeared, cited dozens of violations that didn't exist, and shut us down. I always suspected my family was behind it, and James just confirmed it. They destroyed a clinic that was saving lives just to punish me. The next morning brought fresh revelations that turned my stomach. Emma had spent the night digging deeper into Megan's web of lies, and what she'd found painted a picture of deception that went beyond mere social climbing. My phone buzzed with her call at 6 a.m., her voice breathless with indignation. "Sophie, you're not going to believe this. I was talking to your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, pretending to be concerned about you. She told me your parents remortgaged their house last month. They told her it was for a business investment, but I did some checking. They bought matching Mercedes SUVs and spent $40,000 on jewelry and designer clothes. They're drowning in debt trying to look rich for the Harringtons." My coffee mug nearly slipped from my hand. Just 3 months ago, I'd offered to help my parents refinance at a better rate through my credit union. They'd insisted they were financially stable, that they didn't need their teacher daughter's help. Now they were risking their home to play dress-up for people who measured worth in dollar signs. "There's more," Emma continued. "Megan's been showing the Harringtons photos from your teaching awards ceremonies, but she's telling them you were there as a highly paid consultant. She's claimed your Teacher of the Year nominations were for corporate training programs. She even told them you make 6 figures designing curriculum for elite private schools. The whole family thinks you're secretly wealthy but choose to live modestly as some sort of eccentric quirk." I felt sick. My sister had taken my genuine accomplishments and twisted them into lies that would inevitably collapse. Emma, why would she create lies that could be so easily disproven? Because she's desperate and not thinking clearly. I overheard her on a call with Richard Jr. "He's in serious trouble, Sophie. Apparently, he owes almost $500,000 in gambling debts to some very dangerous people. The engagement is his way of getting back into the family's good graces and accessing money. Megan is his ticket, but only if his family approves of her. She's created this fantasy because the truth wouldn't get their approval." My work email chimed with a notification that made my blood run cold. It was from my principal, Dr. Williams, marked urgent. "Sophie, I just received your resignation letter dated this morning. While I understand if you've decided to pursue other opportunities, I'm confused as this comes just days after your nomination for State Teacher of the Year. Could you please call me immediately? Resignation letter. I hadn't sent any resignation letter. With shaking hands, I logged into my work email. There it was sent at 3 a.m. from my account, a formal resignation citing personal reasons and mental health concerns, and stating I needed to step away from education to focus on getting help. The writing was formal, cold, nothing like how I communicated. Megan had somehow accessed my work email and tried to destroy my career. I immediately called Dr. Williams, my voice shaking with rage. Dr. Williams, I didn't send that resignation. Someone hacked into my account. I have no intention of leaving Lincoln Elementary. Her relief was palpable. Thank goodness. I thought it seemed completely out of character. We'll get it to investigate immediately. Sophie, do you know who would do this to you? My sister, I said flatly. She's trying to force me out of town. There was a long pause before Dr. Williams spoke again, her voice steel. Sophie, I don't know what's happening in your personal life, but know this: Lincoln Elementary stands behind you completely. You're one of the finest educators I've had the privilege of working with in my 30-year career. We'll pursue this criminally if needed. After securing my email and changing all passwords, I discovered the full extent of my parents' participation in Megan's charade. Emma sent screenshots from a Harrington family newsletter of all things featuring an interview with my parents. They'd claimed credit for my educational philosophy, stating they'd guided Sophie's career from the beginning and that my success came from their extensive connections in the education sector. My father, who'd dropped out of high school and got his GED later, was quoted as saying he'd mentored Sophie through her advanced degrees. The article included photos from education conferences I'd attended with captions suggesting I was there representing some vague family enterprise. They'd even included a photo from my college graduation claiming the professor shaking my hand was a family friend in academia, rather than the dean awarding me the valedictorian honor I'd earned through 4 years of exhausting work. Daniel returned from his clinic looking grim. It's escalating, he said, showing me his phone. James had someone call the Guatemala Medical Board claiming I performed procedures without proper licensing. It's completely false, but now there's an investigation that could affect my ability to practice internationally. And this came for you. He handed me an official-looking envelope that had been slipped under his door. Inside was a letter from a law firm representing the Harrington Corporation, warning me about fraudulent claims regarding my relationship with Daniel and threatening legal action if I attempted to exploit the Harrington name for personal gain. The letter referenced specific false claims about my background that could only have come from Megan. She's been telling them you're after money, Daniel explained, that you've been researching our family, that you targeted me. Victoria's been pushing this narrative that you're a gold digger who found out about my identity and seduced me. My phone rang. It was my landlord, Mr. Peterson, and he sounded deeply uncomfortable. Sophie, I just received a formal complaint about you running an illegal tutoring business from your apartment. The complainant says you have students coming and going at all hours, that you're violating zoning laws. They claim to be a concerned family member worried about your mental state. I know this is nonsense. You've been a perfect tenant for 5 years, but I'm required to investigate. Let me guess, I said tiredly. The complaint came from someone named Megan. The person claimed to be your sister, yes. Said she was worried about your increasingly erratic behavior and that you were taking advantage of parents by running an unlicensed educational service. Sophie, I've already told them there's no validity to these claims, but I wanted you to know someone is actively trying to cause you problems. As I hung up, I felt the walls closing in. My family wasn't just excluding me, they were actively trying to destroy my life. Every avenue of attack was calculated to hit where it would hurt most: my career, my home, my reputation. And all for what? To impress people who measured human worth by net assets. Daniel pulled me close. They don't know who they're dealing with, he said quietly. My family. Your family. They think we're weak because we choose service over profit. They're about to learn how wrong they are. My grandmother has been texting me. She's been suspicious about the family's activities for years, and she's very interested in meeting the woman her eldest grandson has been hiding. 3 days before Christmas, as the morning sun cast long shadows through my classroom windows, I made a decision that would change everything. If my family wanted to play games with my life, they'd learn that a teacher's greatest strength isn't in what she knows, but in how she connects with others. My first call was to the one person in the Harrington Empire who still had a conscience, Evelyn Harrington, Daniel's grandmother, and the woman who'd built the pharmaceutical company from nothing before watching her son corrupt it into a monument to greed. Daniel had given me her private number months ago, though I'd never used it. Her voice when she answered was sharp as a blade despite her 83 years. "You must be Sophie. Daniel speaks of you constantly, though he thinks he's being subtle. I've been wondering when you'd call. Mrs. Harrington, I believe your family is being deceived about who I am and who your grandson is. I'd like the opportunity to show you the truth." There was a long pause, then a dry chuckle. "My dear, I've lived through hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, and 3 assassination attempts. I can spot deception from 1,000 yards. Come to my home tomorrow at 2. Bring evidence. And call me Evelyn." With Emma's help, I spent the next 24 hours creating a comprehensive presentation that would expose every lie. We gathered screenshots, financial records, photos, and testimonies. Emma had managed to record several conversations with Megan, who'd grown comfortable enough to brag about her schemes. The crown jewel was a video Emma captured at a family dinner I hadn't been invited to, where Megan explicitly outlined her plan to remake the family image and eliminate embarrassments, meaning me. But the universe wasn't done testing me. The morning of my meeting with Evelyn, I arrived at Lincoln Elementary to find police cars in the parking lot. Dr. Williams met me at the entrance, her face grave. "Sophie, someone called in an anonymous tip claiming you had drugs in your classroom. We have to follow protocol, but I want you to know I don't believe a word of it." The search was humiliating. Parents dropping off their children watched as officers went through my desk, my supply closets, my personal belongings. My students pressed their faces against the window, confused and scared. Then, hidden behind textbooks I'd never touched, they found a bag of pills that I'd never seen before. "Those aren't mine," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I demand you test them immediately and check the security footage. Someone planted those." One of the officers, Officer Martinez, whose daughter had been in my class 2 years prior, stepped forward. "Ms. Sophie, we're checking the cameras now. Don't worry." Within an hour, the security footage revealed everything. A figure in a hood had entered the school the previous night using a copied keycard. The figure was careful, but made one mistake. She removed her hood for just a moment while checking her phone, revealing Megan's face clear as day. She'd worn gloves, but hadn't considered cameras in the hallway. The footage showed her planting the drugs, taking photos, and even practicing what looked like a concerned expression. "We'll be filing charges," Officer Martinez assured me. "This is serious. Planting evidence, breaking and entering, filing a false police report, attempting to frame someone for drug possession. Your sister is looking at significant jail time." But I had a different plan. "Don't file charges yet," I requested. "I need a few more days." The incident had an unexpected consequence. Parents who'd witnessed the morning's drama were outraged when they learned the truth. By lunch, my phone was flooded with messages of support. Senator Patricia Walsh, whose son Timothy was in my class, called personally. "Sophie, if anyone tries to damage your reputation, they'll have to go through me. You saved my son from believing he was stupid because of his dyslexia. I don't forget things like that." Federal Judge Robert Chen, whose daughter had flourished under my teaching, offered legal support. Tech mogul Sarah Martinez, whose twins I'd helped through their parents' difficult divorce, pledged to counter any financial threats. Without realizing it, I'd built an army of influential supporters simply by caring for their children. The meeting with Evelyn Harrington exceeded all expectations. Her mansion was old, money, elegant, nothing like the gaudy display her son preferred. She reviewed my evidence with the shrewd intelligence that had built an empire, occasionally making notes in her leather journal. "Fascinating," she said after 2 hours. "My son has been telling me about this wonderful family Richard is marrying into. Old money, he claimed. Connected, refined, understated wealth. I knew it was nonsense, of course. I investigate everyone who enters our orbit. But I wanted to see how far the deception would go." She fixed me with eyes that missed nothing. "You love my grandson." "With everything I have," I replied honestly. "Not because he's a Harrington, but because he chose healing over hurting, service over selfishness. He could have had everything your family considers valuable, and he walked away to save lives. That takes a courage I admire more than any fortune." Evelyn smiled, the first genuine warmth I'd seen from her. "You remind me of myself at your age. I built Harrington Pharmaceuticals to help people you know. Affordable medications for those who needed them most. Then I made the mistake of trusting my son with my legacy." Her expression hardened. "He's been embezzling. I've suspected for years but needed proof. Daniel's rebellion gave him the perfect distraction of family crisis to wave around while he bled the company dry. But I've been watching, waiting, gathering evidence." She showed me financial documents that made my head spin. Offshore accounts, shell companies, millions siphoned off, while prices for life-saving drugs soared. "Your presentation skills are impeccable," she noted. "Very teacher-like, clear, methodical, impossible to misunderstand. I could use someone like you when I retake control of my company." That evening, my phone exploded with texts. My students' parents had organized creating a social media campaign celebrating my teaching. The hashtag Justice for Sophie was trending locally. Videos poured in from former students now in high school or college, crediting me with changing their lives. Parents shared stories of how I'd helped their children overcome learning disabilities, anxiety, and trauma. The response from my principal made me cry. Dr. Williams had written a public letter detailing my contributions, innovative programs I'd developed, the countless hours of unpaid tutoring, the way I'd transformed struggling students into confident learners. She revealed something I'd kept private. Several prestigious private schools had tried to poach me with salaries triple what I made, but I'd stayed because I believed in public education. Even more surprisingly, the Ivy League offer I'd turned down became public when Professor David Kumar from Harvard's Education Department posted his support. "Sophie Chen represents the best of what education can be. We offered her a position 3 times, and 3 times she chose her students over prestige. That's the kind of educator our world needs." As the support poured in, Megan's plan crumbled. The drug planting had been captured from multiple angles, each more damning than the last. But what truly destroyed her was Emma's final recording. She'd managed to capture Megan on a call with Richard Jr., both of them laughing about their deceptions, calling the Harringtons easy marks, and discussing how they'd drain the family wealth once married. Emma had sent it anonymously to Victoria Harrington with a simple note: "You might want to hear what your future sister-in-law really thinks of your family." Christmas Eve arrived with a bitter wind that seemed fitting for the storm about to break over my family's home. Daniel and I sat in his car outside my parents' house watching as the Harrington convoy arrived. 3 black SUVs disgorged their occupants like an invading army. Richard Sr., with his silver fox hair and $1,000 shoes. His wife, Margaret, dripping in diamonds, Victoria, in a coat that cost more than my car, and James looking like he'd stepped from a boardroom even on Christmas Eve. Notably absent was Richard Jr., whose gambling debts had finally caught up with him that morning when 2 very large men appeared at his apartment. According to Victoria's furious texts to Daniel, he'd fled to Canada, leaving behind only a note admitting he'd been planning to embezzle from the family business once married to Megan. The engagement, built on mutual deception, had imploded spectacularly. "Ready," Daniel asked, squeezing my hand. Behind us, another car pulled up. Evelyn Harrington emerged regal at 83, followed by her personal lawyer and, surprisingly, a film crew. For posterity, she'd told me. Some moments deserve to be preserved. We walked to the door together, an unlikely alliance forged by truth against deception. My father answered, his face cycling through expressions like a broken slot machine. Shock, fear, anger, and finally, a pathetic attempt at welcome. "Sophie, we weren't expecting—" "Mrs. Harrington, please come in." He was wearing a new Rolex, I noticed, while behind him the house looked like a desperate attempt at upper-class respectability. New furniture still bearing price tags, artwork clearly chosen for impressiveness rather than taste, and my mother in a designer dress that hung awkwardly on her frame. The living room was a study in tension. The Harrington family sat like they were holding court while my parents fluttered nervously, and Megan stood frozen by the fireplace, her carefully constructed world visibly cracking. The moment she saw me, her face contorted with rage. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "This is a private family gathering. You weren't invited. Mom, Dad, tell her to leave." But our parents were too stunned by Evelyn's presence to respond. The matriarch of the Harrington Empire sat in their cheap new armchair like it was a throne, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Actually," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the tension, "I invited them. You see, I've been terribly curious about this family my grandson Richard was so eager to marry into. Such sterling credentials, according to my son. Old money," he said. "Connections throughout the business world. Imagine my surprise when my investigation revealed something rather different." Megan tried to interject, but Evelyn continued smoothly. "A plumber and a part-time receptionist who've mortgaged their home to buy luxury cars they can't afford. A daughter who's created an entirely fictional family history complete with forged documents and elaborate lies. And another daughter, a devoted teacher who's been erased from the family narrative because her honest profession doesn't fit the fantasy." "You don't understand," my mother stammered. "We just wanted the best for our family. Sophie chose her path and we respect that. But Megan has opportunities." "Opportunities built on lies," Daniel interjected, standing beside me. "Like claiming Sophie is a wealthy consultant when she's actually exactly what she appears to be, an exceptional teacher who's changed hundreds of lives. Or pretending your husband ran a company when he's a skilled tradesman who should be proud of honest work. Or portraying yourselves as something you're not while going into devastating debt." Megan's composure finally shattered. "You ruined everything," she screamed at me. "Everything. I was so close to having the life I deserve, and you had to destroy it with your jealousy. You couldn't stand that I was finally going to be somebody while you waste your life with other people's brats. Those brats include the children of senators, judges, and yes, even tech billionaires who trust me with their most precious possessions," I replied calmly. "But more importantly, they include kids who came to me unable to read and left loving books. Children who thought they were stupid, until I showed them they were brilliant in different ways. Students who might have given up if someone hadn't believed in them." Victoria Harrington stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We're leaving. Father, Mother, we've been deceived by gold-digging trash." But Evelyn's quiet laugh stopped her. "Gold-digging? That's rich considering Sophie turned down a Harvard position and triple her current salary to stay with her students. Or didn't you know that Victoria too busy threatening to destroy her career to do actual research?" The film crew captured every moment as Evelyn produced a folder. "Speaking of research, I've been looking into some interesting financial irregularities. Richard, would you like to explain why Harrington Pharmaceuticals has been hemorrhaging money into accounts controlled by you and James? Or, Victoria, shall we discuss the insider trading that's netted you millions, while our stock price manipulated vulnerable investors?" The room erupted. Richard Sr. turned on his wife, accusing her of enabling their children's criminal behavior. Margaret shrieked that it was his fault for being blind to their flaws. James tried to slip out but found the door blocked by Evelyn's security. Victoria pulled out her phone, frantically calling her lawyer, only to discover her assets had been frozen that morning. Through it all, my parents sat in stunned silence, watching their dreams of wealth by association crumble. The Harringtons weren't just flawed, they were corrupt, criminal, and now exposed. Everything they'd sacrificed, lied, and betrayed me for was worthless. But Megan wasn't finished. In a last desperate play, she stood and announced, "Well, at least I'm not barren like Sophie. She can't even give a man children. Daniel, did she tell you that she's damaged goods? That's why no man has ever wanted her long term. She pretends it's about her career, but really, what's the point of a woman who can't even fulfill her basic biological purpose?" The room went silent. Even the battling Harringtons stopped to stare. Megan had played her final card, the secret she'd somehow discovered through my medical records when I'd used her as an emergency contact years ago. The cruelest cut delivered with vicious precision in front of everyone. I felt Daniel's hand tighten in mine, but I stood tall. "You're right, Megan. I can't have biological children, a medical condition I've known about for years. I've never told the family because you've never asked about my life beyond how it reflects on you. But you know what? I've been a mother to hundreds of children. I've dried tears, celebrated victories, taught first words and first equations. I've shaped minds and hearts and futures. If that's not fulfilling a purpose, I don't know what is." Besides, Evelyn added with a smile, "there are many ways to build a family. I've been suggesting Daniel consider adoption for years. So many children need parents who understand that love isn't about DNA, it's about dedication. Sophie understands that better than anyone in this room." My father finally found his voice, but it was to deliver one more betrayal. "Sophie, you need to fix this. Apologize to everyone. Make this right. We've invested everything in this connection. The house, our savings, our reputation. You're destroying your own family for what your pride. Your need to be right. A good daughter would sacrifice for her family's happiness. I've been sacrificing for this family my entire adult life." I replied, my voice steady despite the tears threatening. "I paid your medical bills, Dad. I supported Mom through her depression. I put Megan through college. And how do you repay me? By calling me an embarrassment, by trying to destroy my career, by planting drugs in my classroom, by treating my life's work as something shameful. A good family wouldn't ask a daughter to erase herself for their comfort." The Harrington empire collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. Evelyn, with the efficiency that had built a pharmaceutical giant, systematically dismantled the corruption her son had fostered. Richard Sr. tried to flee when federal agents arrived, called by Evelyn herself after she'd provided them with years of meticulously gathered evidence. The sight of him being led away in handcuffs while frantically calling his lawyer was a moment of pure poetic justice that the film crew captured in devastating detail. Margaret Harrington's breakdown was spectacular. The woman who'd spent decades looking down on anyone worth less than 8 figures was reduced to screaming about betrayal and ingratitude while mascara ran down her perfectly lifted face. She lunged at Evelyn, accusing her of destroying the family only to be restrained by security. "You bitter old woman!" she shrieked. "You've ruined everything because you're jealous of what Richard built." What Richard built. Evelyn's voice was ice. "He built nothing. He inherited my life's work and turned it into a machine for greed. Every innovation, every patent, every foundation stone was laid by me. He's a parasite who convinced himself he was a predator. The only thing he successfully built was a criminal enterprise that killed people for profit." Victoria's arrest was quieter, but no less satisfying. The FBI had been investigating her insider trading for months, needing only the final pieces of evidence that Evelyn provided. As they read her rights, she maintained her cold composure until she saw Daniel. "This is your fault," she spat. "You and your trash girlfriend. We're your family." "No," Daniel replied firmly. "Family doesn't threaten to destroy careers. Family doesn't shut down medical clinics serving the poor out of spite. Family doesn't try to have you declared incompetent for choosing service over greed. Sophie has shown me more family loyalty in 8 months than you have in 35 years. James tried to bargain, offering to testify against his father and sister in exchange for immunity. But his own crimes ran too deep. The Guatemala clinic shutdown was just the beginning. He'd been using Harrington resources to eliminate competing free clinics, ensuring desperate patients had nowhere to turn but their price-gouging hospitals. The FBI agent arresting him seemed personally disgusted. "You targeted pediatric clinics," she said. "Children died because of you." But perhaps the most satisfying downfall was Megan's. The drug planting incident had opened a criminal investigation that revealed the depths of her deception. She'd forged documents, committed identity theft using my social security number to check my medical records, and attempted to frame me for a felony. The police found evidence of other schemes, too. Plans to steal my identity completely to use my teaching credentials to get jobs she wasn't qualified for. Even a draft letter claiming I'd had a mental breakdown and giving her power of attorney over my affairs. When the officers came for her, Megan turned to our parents with desperate eyes. Tell them I'm a good person. This is all a misunderstanding, Mom, Dad. You know I only wanted what was best for the family." But our parents, faced with the complete collapse of their social climbing dreams and the reality of crushing debt, had nothing left to give her. "You destroyed us," my father said quietly. "We mortgaged everything. We're going to lose the house. Your mother's having anxiety attacks. We alienated Sophie, the only child who ever actually helped us, for your schemes. And for what? So you could pretend to be something you're not to impress criminals." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In trying to join a corrupt family, Megan had revealed her own corruption. In attempting to destroy my modest but honest life, she'd destroyed her own future. As the police led her away, she screamed that I'd ruined everything, that I was jealous, that I couldn't stand to see her succeed. Even in handcuffs, she couldn't acknowledge that her success had been built on lies that were always destined to crumble. The film crew captured every moment, creating a documentary that would later win awards for its unflinching look at how greed and deception destroy families. But in that moment, I felt no satisfaction watching my sister arrested. Only a deep sadness for the relationship we'd never have the sister who'd chosen lies over love. The aftermath for my parents was swift and merciless. The luxury cars were repossessed within days. The designer clothes and jewelry bought on credit were returned. The house mortgaged beyond its value went into foreclosure. They were left with nothing but the bitter knowledge that they'd sacrificed their family for a fantasy. They moved into a small apartment, the kind they'd mocked me for living in. My mother got a job at a grocery store. My father went back to plumbing, this time as an employee, rather than running his own business. They'd call occasionally, not to apologize, but to hint about their struggles, hoping I'd offer financial help like I always had before. But those days were over. I'd learned that helping them only enabled their worst impulses. The extended family's reaction was mixed. Some, like Emma, had seen the truth all along and rallied around me. Others, who'd bought into Megan's lies, struggled to reconcile the narrative they'd been fed with reality. A few accused me of vindictiveness, of using my powerful boyfriend to destroy my own family. I didn't argue with them. You can't force people to see truth they're determined to ignore. But the most profound transformations came from unexpected sources. Richard Jr., hiding in Canada, sent a rambling letter of apology, admitting he'd never loved Megan and saw her only as a means to access family money for his gambling debts. He revealed that Megan had known about his debts from the beginning and had her own plan to drain the Harrington accounts once married. Two con artists who'd found each other, each planning to con the other. Even more surprisingly, 6 months later, I received a letter from Victoria in federal prison. Without her parents' money for high-powered lawyers, she'd been convicted and sentenced to 5 years. Her letter was brief, but shocking. "I hated you because you had what I never did, the courage to be yourself. I spent my whole life trying to be what my father wanted, and it led me here. You and Daniel escaped. I wish I'd been brave enough to follow. The Harrington pharmaceutical empire under Evelyn's temporary leadership, and Daniel's vision transformed completely. Drug prices were slashed to affordable levels. Free clinics were established in underserved communities. The company that had once profited from suffering became a model for ethical pharmaceutical practice. Daniel split his time between running the company's charitable division and practicing medicine, finally able to combine his healing calling with the resources to make real change. 6 months after that catastrophic Christmas Eve, I stood in the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Evelyn Harrington Educational Center, a revolutionary school where children from all economic backgrounds would learn together. The woman who'd built an empire had decided her legacy wouldn't be in pills or profits, but in breaking down the barriers that let people like Megan and her children believe wealth determined worth. The school was everything I'd dreamed education could be. Sliding scale tuition meant billionaires' children sat next to kids from the housing projects. The curriculum I'd developed emphasized emotional intelligence, alongside academics teaching empathy as rigorously as mathematics. Every child had access to art, music, technology, and, most importantly, teachers who saw their potential rather than their parents' bank accounts. Daniel stood beside me, his hand warm in mine as his grandmother cut the ribbon. He'd transformed too, finding joy in using Harrington resources for healing rather than hoarding. The free clinics he'd established had expanded into a network serving millions. He often said that losing his family's approval had been the price of finding his purpose, and Sophie had shown him it was worth paying. My former students had campaigned to name the school's library after me, but I'd declined. Instead, it was called the Reading Rainbow Library, after the program that had taught me that books could be doors to anywhere. Senator Walsh's son Timothy, now thriving in middle school, had given a speech about how I'd taught him that dyslexia was a different way of seeing, not a limitation. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. My parents had sent a card asking if they could attend the ceremony. I'd stared at it for a long time before responding with a simple, no. They'd made their choice when they decided I was worth less than their fantasy of wealth. Some bridges once burned couldn't be rebuilt with greeting card sentiments. They lived quietly now in their small apartment. My mother had found unexpected purpose working at the grocery store, helping elderly customers and becoming known for her kindness. My father had rediscovered pride in honest plumbing work, fixing pipes for people who couldn't afford emergency rates. They'd been humbled by loss, but I wasn't sure they'd truly learned. Their occasional calls still hinted that I should help them, that families should forgive, that everyone makes mistakes. They never quite said the words, "I'm sorry," or "we were wrong." Megan served 18 months in minimum security prison. The charges had been reduced in a plea deal where she testified about her schemes and agreed to pay restitution. I heard through Emma that she worked in the prison library teaching literacy to other inmates. Perhaps there was hope for her, yet though she'd never contacted me. Her last words to me had been screamed curses as police led her away. Maybe silence was better than insincere apologies. The documentary about our family's implosion had sparked a national conversation about social climbing, family betrayal, and the cost of valuing wealth over worth. I received thousands of messages from people who'd experienced similar rejection, from families who saw their honest professions as embarrassments, teachers, social workers, nurses, artists, all sharing stories of being deemed not enough by relatives obsessed with status. We'd started a support group that met monthly at the school. The Genuine Article. We called ourselves people who'd chosen authenticity over approval, purpose over profit. The stories shared in that circle were heartbreaking and healing in equal measure. Family members who'd been excluded from weddings for being teachers, disowned for choosing social work over law school, mocked for finding joy in simple lives. One evening, as spring painted the sky purple and gold, Daniel and I sat in my same small apartment. The one Megan had mocked my parents had pitied and I had loved. We'd talked about buying a house, but this space held such meaning now. Every corner contained a memory of choosing myself over others' expectations. Any regrets? Daniel asked, pulling me close on the couch where he'd first revealed his identity. Sometimes I wonder if we could have handled it differently, less dramatically, less publicly. I considered the question, thinking of my parents in their small apartment, Megan in her prison cell, the extended family divided by truth. They tried to destroy my career, my home, my reputation, I said finally. They planted drugs to frame me, sent resignation letters, called me barren and worthless. What different handling would have changed that? Should I have quietly accepted exile from my own family? Should I have let them succeed in their lies? No, he said firmly. I just hate that you had to lose them to find your worth. I didn't lose them, I corrected gently. I lost the illusion of them, the family I thought I had never existed. They loved an idea of who I should be, not who I was. When I refused to erase myself for their comfort, they showed me who they really were. The loss happened long before that Christmas. I just finally stopped pretending otherwise. A knock at the door interrupted our reflection. I opened it to find one of my current students, Maria, with her mother. 6 months ago, Maria had been selectively mute, traumatized by her parents' bitter divorce. Now she chattered excitedly about the stories she'd written, words tumbling over each other in her eagerness to share. Ms. Sophie, Ms. Sophie, I won the writing contest, the one about heroes. I wrote about you. She thrust the paper into my hands, beaming. I wrote about how you teach us that heroes don't wear capes or have lots of money. They have big hearts and help people find their voices. Her mother's eyes were wet. She hasn't stopped talking about winning. 2 years ago, she wouldn't speak at all. You gave me my daughter back. This, I thought, was wealth beyond measure. Not stock portfolios or designer clothes or fancy cars, but a child finding her voice, a mother getting her daughter back, a future shaped by love rather than fear. After they left, I found myself at my laptop writing a response to the thousands who'd shared their stories of family rejection. My fingers moved across the keys with certainty born from lived experience. To everyone who's been told you're not enough because you chose service over salary, purpose over profit, authenticity over artifice, you are not alone. Your worth isn't measured in dollars or titles, or the approval of people who can only see value through the lens of material success. They may call you failures for choosing to teach, to heal, to create, to serve. They may exclude you from family gatherings because your honest work embarrasses their pretensions. They may try to diminish your achievements because they don't come with prestigious titles or six-figure salaries. But here's what I've learned. The people who truly matter will see your worth immediately. The parents who trust you with their children know that no salary could buy what you give. The patients you heal, the students you inspire, the art you create, the communities you serve, they understand value in ways your critics never will. You don't need to apologize for choosing meaning over money. You don't need to lie about what you do or inflate your importance to deserve a seat at any table. The tables that require you to be someone else aren't worth sitting at. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them, who celebrates your victories without calculating their monetary value, who sees you for exactly who you are and says, "You are enough. You have always been enough." Sometimes the greatest gift people can give you is showing you who they really are, even if that revelation breaks your heart. When someone tells you that you're worth less because of your bank account or job title, believe them. Not about your worth, but about theirs. They've shown you their values, and you can choose whether those values deserve space in your life. I lost my biological family because I refused to be ashamed of being a teacher. But I gained a chosen family who sees teaching as the noble profession it is. I lost parents who valued appearance over authenticity, but gained mentors who valued impact over income. I lost a sister who saw me as competition to eliminate, but gained colleagues who see me as a companion in changing the world one child at a time. Your profession doesn't define your worth, but choosing a profession that serves others says everything about your character. Hold your head high. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, doing exactly what the world needs. And that is, and has always been, enough. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Teachers shared stories of students they'd saved. Social workers wrote about families they'd helped heal. Nurses told of patients whose lives they'd changed. Artists spoke of beauty they'd brought to gray worlds. All of them had been told they were settling, wasting potential, embarrassing their families. All of them had chosen purpose anyway. A year after that terrible Christmas text, I received an unexpected message. It was from a young teacher in Ohio whose wealthy family had cut her off for wasting her Harvard education on public school brats. She'd been ready to give up when she found our support group online. Now she was thriving, her students adoring her, her purpose clear. She ended with, "Thank you for showing me that losing family who don't value your values isn't a loss at all. It's freedom." That night, Daniel and I attended the school's first winter concert. Children from every economic background sang together, their voices blending in perfect harmony. The senator's daughter hitting the high notes, while the janitor's son carried the bass line, the CEO's twins harmonizing with kids from the shelter. No one cared who had money or whose parents were important. All that mattered was the music they made together. Evelyn sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. At 84, she'd found the legacy she'd really wanted. Not pills in bottles, but potential unleashed. "I spent 60 years building wealth," she told me during intermission. "You've shown me how to build worth. Thank you for that." As the concert ended with all the children singing about being the change they wished to see, I thought about that December day when my world shattered with a text. My father had written that I'd embarrass them, that I wasn't elite enough for his dreams. He'd been right in a way he never intended. I wasn't elite in the way he meant, consumed by status, willing to sacrifice truth for perception, measuring worth in material goods. Instead, I was something far more valuable, genuine. A teacher who'd chosen chalk dust over corporate climbing, a woman who'd picked purpose over profit, a daughter who'd refused to erase herself for anyone's comfort. And in losing the family who couldn't see my worth, I'd gained a life filled with people who could. The final text from my mother came that Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after everything fell apart. "Watching the news about your school. Your father cries sometimes. Not sure if it's pride or regret. Maybe both. We see now what we lost, not money or status. You. Merry Christmas, Sophie." I read it 3 times before deleting it. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt with texts. Some relationships couldn't be healed with hints at maybe regret. They'd made their choice when they decided I was worthless without wealth. I'd made mine when I decided I was worthy regardless. As snow began to fall outside the auditorium, parents thanked me for what I'd done for their children. Students hugged me with sticky candy cane fingers, and colleagues shared the joy of work that mattered. Daniel took my hand. Evelyn linked her arm through mine, and we walked into the winter night surrounded by chosen family who knew that the greatest fortune wasn't in bank accounts, but in the lives we touched. They thought a teacher's salary made me poor. They never understood that teaching gave me riches they couldn't imagine, purpose, respect, and a legacy that would outlive any fortune. I didn't need their approval. I had something far more valuable. A life lived authentically, surrounded by people who knew that worth had nothing to do with wealth and everything to do with who you became when no one was keeping score. The Harringtons had tried to destroy me for being just a teacher. My family had betrayed me for the same reason. But in the end, being just a teacher had saved me, shown me my true worth, and given me a family that understood that the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the impact you have on the world. And that Christmas Eve, surrounded by children singing and parents grateful, and a man who'd given up millions to heal others, I knew I was exactly where I belonged. Not at a table where I had to pretend to be someone else, but in a life where being myself was more than enough. It was everything. The elite table they'd protected so carefully sat empty now. The Harringtons imprisoned or scattered my sister behind bars, the golden future they'd sacrificed everything for, revealed as fool's gold. But my table overflowed with people who measured wealth in kindness, success in service, and family in love, rather than blood. And that was the greatest gift of all, discovering that when you refuse to shrink yourself for others' comfort, you create space for people who celebrate your full size. They were right. I wasn't elite enough for their Christmas table. I was something better real. And that I'd learned was worth more than all the Harrington millions, all the false family approval, all the designer dreams in the world. It was worth everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey. If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, if you've been made to feel less than because of your chosen profession, or if you've had to choose between being yourself and being accepted, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. What was your moment of choosing authenticity over approval? How did you find your chosen family? Please hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss more stories about triumph over family betrayal. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by their wealth. It might be exactly what they need today. Remember, you are enough exactly as you are. Your value isn't in your bank account or your family's approval. It's in the lives you touch and the authenticity you bring to the world. Thank you for watching, and may your holidays be filled with people who love you for who you truly are, not who they think you should be. Until next time, keep choosing yourself. You're worth it.